any person in finance that wants to develop a career in finance. Can be a junior analyst, can be a controller, can be an accountant, can be a treasury person. The first thing, in my opinion, what I call is the compliance. I think the CFO needs to be always, or the finance associate, the guard of compliance for the company.
Thank you for listening to the podcast thus far. The one favor I would ask, if you can, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, is to press the follow and subscribe button on whatever media platform you listen to us, as it helps us grow our network and grow the podcast. So thank you and enjoy the podcast. Hello, and welcome back to Alchemy Uncensored Podcast. We're on our third season, and we promise you that we'll bring in more valuable insights into the financial and tax sector. Today, we've got Ignacio Anglada, originally from Spain, and have developed an international finance career in finance, traveled different countries and worked both in multinationals and also local regional players. Recently, he's held the Group CFO role at Juiphar Pharmaceuticals, a public listed company in the Abu Dhabi stock market and key player in the pharma arena in Middle East. In today's episode, we explore what a CFO brings to a company, Ignacio's journey through finance and his key career moments. We will also look at what makes the role enjoyable, the culture the CFO aims to create, and the biggest career experience along the way. So, Ignacio, ¿qué tal?
Buenos días. Good morning, Connor.
Good morning.
First of all, thank you very much for having me here today and following your podcasts. And it's very nice videos that you are collecting with the community of finance people here in Dubai and in UAE. And it's a pleasure for me to be here with you today.
It's great to have you. And I guess the beauty of the podcast is we've been doing a few recordings this week, and we've many different nationalities. So I think I'm pretty sure you're our first Spanish guest on the podcast. So looking forward to going into different parts today. We've built a good relationship. We've had a lovely round of golf, and you're someone that I'm very excited to speak with because you're very passionate. You're not your traditional stiff sometimes accountant. You've got plenty of passion. So looking forward to getting into that today. But I guess before we go into that, we're just quite keen to get a bit of a high level overview of your career. As you said, you're from Spain. So just talk the audience through where you started and how you've ended up in the seat you're in today.
Thank you, Connor. So yes, regarding the golf, we need to catch up again because I'm a bit disappointed of my last performance with you. But yes, originally from Barcelona, from Spain. It's already now close to 20 years that I'm not anymore in Barcelona. I started an international career that moved me and my family through different countries. As a background, I started, as most of us, studying economics in the University of Barcelona. I joined one of the big five at the time. Now it's big four. It was Arthur Andersen, where I was surrounded by very big professionals. Then I joined a company that was producing motorcycles in Barcelona, where I had a lot of fun. We had even a MotoGP team. I spent 6 years there, and I did my MBA in ESADE Business School, which is basically something that has marked a lot in my career. Is a network of very good professionals and better people that has been holding my hand also during this journey. Then I joined Novartis, where I did most of my finance career, close to 18 years. Having roles in finance of different responsibilities, increasing responsibility, from a very junior finance analyst in Barcelona to moving at the end as a group CFO for our subsidiary in Slovakia in Eastern Europe, or having all the responsibility for biopharmaceutical manufacturing or chemical and antibiotics for the division of Sandoz. Most recently, I came here to UAE, where I was requested to join a company that is Juiphar Pharmaceuticals, where I hold the group CFO role over the last 3 years, and the company has, or I have been leading a very important finance transformation that puts the company now in good shape in order to develop a very important strategic plan that is focused on a big expansion, innovation, and a very important cultural transformation.
Just going back then to Novartis, so 18 years there you said, and this is again for anyone who tunes into the pod, we see senior finance professionals who are at big multinationals. It seems they're constantly going from one location to a next location to grow within the role. So again, I just want to ask you, were you seen as that person, that you were a bit of a fixer, or obviously you were sent to different parts of Europe, I think, and why were you that person, I guess, is the question I'm trying to get at.
Yes, Connor, is a good question. I think that if I look backwards 20 years ago, I would never imagine I have gone through all these different countries and different positions. I think it comes naturally, So I think that is basically who are your managers early stage in your career. Okay, these people that that touch you at the beginning, okay, that fosters what you are going to be in the future, okay? So I had, at that time, very important mentors, very important managers that educate me on what is a leader looking like. Then I think it's important to get the exposure to different projects or situations that builds up on your profile, okay? So I think, yes, I mean, some people might not be open to an international career, while others are more open to international career, okay? I think the international career gives you the opportunity to see different things, different challenges that at the end will foster and will create what is your profile. And then by chance, I think maybe also driven because these international companies, your assignments are 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So you have very clear objective of what you need to deliver, and this triggers that your agenda is very fixed on what you need to do, what you need to deliver. No, so at the end, in most of the cases, has been, as you said, roles where I had to fix challenging situations that were existing at that point in time in that organization. It was also projects where performance was a very clear focus that had to be delivered. And I think that this has been the case in many of the assignments that I had in Novartis.
Touching on CFO itself as a role, so what do you think is important that a CFO brings, one, to a role, and secondly, to a company?
It's a journey. No? So at the end, the most important thing, in my opinion, that, and I would not say a CFO, I would say any person in finance that wants to develop a career in finance, can be a junior analyst, can be a controller, can be an accountant, can be a treasury person. The first thing, in my opinion, what I call is the compliance. I think the CFO needs to be always, or the finance associate, the guard of compliance for the company. The second topic is, in my opinion, to be a very strong business partner. And this applies again to all the levels, from a junior controller with their business partners to a CFO of a big group with the business leader that can be the general manager or the CEO, and even expanding into the board, the chairman, and the shareholders. How does the CFO protect this value for these stakeholders? The third one is to deliver value. Okay, at the end, the CFO is the person that maybe is not the most clever person in the organization. There is much more clever person, but we have an advantage, that is, we basically have the information of most of the topics that happen in the organization. We have the data and we have the information. So we are the perfect person in the company to put all that cocktail together, make it happen that goes communicated in the proper way to facilitate the decision making. As you develop your career in finance, your span of people to whom you are going to communicate is going to increase. Okay? So you can go from a pure commercial controller where you will interact with the commercial people to basically be a 360 rounded CFO where your span of communication will go through all your executive team, can be in the area of commercial, research and development, manufacturing, or legal, okay? To your CEO, to your board, your chairman, or your shareholders when you are sitting in the annual general assembly in front of the investors. No? So I think that ensuring that you customize your message to your audience is not the same message that you are going to provide to a person in manufacturing, that to a person in research and development, to a shareholder or investor. Okay? So you need to be very conscious about what kind of audience are you addressing the message. The second topic is about, at least in my case, the advice I can give, or based on my experience, does not need to be wrong or right, it's basically my experience, is what are these common objectives that at the end are cascaded into KPIs that every single function will have. Okay? So have a common language based on these objectives/KPIs, and ensuring that the advice you give are going to support that team or that function in achieving that KPIs, I think is a second good approach when communicating to different stakeholders. Okay?
You know, Ignacio, for you then, you know, what has been your evolution in finance? So as I said, you've been around the block, you've seen a lot of things, you've worked in different countries, different cultures. So how have you evolved? And, you know, what has been the key highlights? Because, you know, anyone to look at your LinkedIn will have seen you've been all over the place.
So I think the first one would be a very technical answer I would give is the evolution on how you analyze the information and what are the data points that you use. When you are a junior finance guy, I think the P&L tends to be your tool to manage the organization. As you evolve in your career, you start to capitalize on the balance sheet, okay? And then you realize as you approach investors and shareholders that the cash flow becomes a very important component.
Cash is king.
Correct. So understand how all these dynamics plays and with who you are going to have a discussion on which specific financial item has been a very nice part of my development when we go into the technicalities. Okay. The second topic that I always share and applies to all the levels in your finance career, is at which point in time you are in being a part of the decision-making process of the actions that a team needs to take. Okay, so we all go through understanding data first, starting to challenge that data. With the challenge of this data, start to give opinions to your business partner. But at the end, this opinion, when you lead that decision together with your business partner, can be a business unit head, can be a CEO, can be a board, okay, is where you start to make the difference in your career development. Okay? So I'm trying to be always very conscious, independently of the role and the moment that I am in my role, okay, in which stage I am, trying to do this curve as fast as possible and being a very important player on the decision making as soon as possible. Okay. The important third bucket corner that I would like to share is on people development. Okay, so I think as you evolve as a leader in your career, is less and less time that you take on the administrative staff, but more and more time that you take on developing people. Okay, so I think this is also a very nice journey that I have been, or that I'm part of this journey nowadays. As I say, I'm a leader that is work in progress. Yeah. There's not yet a leader that is perfect. I mean, we are all work in progress leaders, okay? And this is maybe one of the things that over the last 5 to 8 years, I'm more passionate about.
Yeah, okay? Good. And then even with that, having dealt you're a very positive sort of person and you're a very open book and very honest. So, what do you actually enjoy as a CFO? You've seen a lot of things. I'm just more intrigued for, what makes you happy? Obviously developing people, as you mentioned there, but what else, are the key things you actually really enjoy about the role?
Mm-hmm. I cannot avoid now to move into the parallelisms with the sport, Conor.
Okay, good.
As you know, we both like sports.
Yeah.
We have the golf in common.
Yeah.
I'm a passionate of soccer. Okay, so there are two things that I always ask to my team members to reflect. Okay, which is the dimensions that I want to ensure every person that I interact with have. Okay, the one thing is ownership. Okay, I think that really own the journey on which a company, a department, a function, a role is in. Okay, to really is more than commitment, is ownership, is bring it end to end. Okay, and the second is always question and challenge the status quo. Okay, so when I compare with Messi, okay,
yeah.
Messi has been the best player in the world for the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you take a video of Messi 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or today, his way of playing is completely different. Okay, because he has been reinventing regularly in order to challenge this status quo and keep this number one player of the world, so the other team cannot really anticipate what he's going to do. Okay, so ownership and challenging a status quo for me are very important parameters. Okay, the other thing that I would like always to take into account for me, but also for the people that I work with, is curiosity. Okay, curiosity and ambition. Okay, curiosity to learn, curiosity to see how the others do, curiosity to understand what are the best practices and try to replicate. Okay, an ambition that sometimes has negative connotations, but for me has a positive one. Okay, that is really trying to deliver your best, trying to help your team to operate at the best level. Okay, trying to be a leader that isn't blocking obstacles, so your team or your peers can shine when they deliver also their activities or their projects. Okay, so that's a bit the parameters that I like.
That's good. I haven't heard that one before, but yeah, it's good.
Okay.
And I guess, pushing, a little bit further culturally. So you worked in, different cultures, Middle East, Europe. We've obviously a lot of listeners who are outside the region. They might be in Spain, they might be wherever. But, what have you found coming to work in the Middle East versus Europe? Doesn't need to be negative, positive, but just what would you, if you were to get a phone call from a good friend in Spain saying, hey, I want to come and work in Dubai, what things should they be aware of?
I think that my ongoing position on terms of culture is that at the end it goes into the individual. And when you go to the root motivators of the individuals, for most of us, these are equal, are exactly the same. Okay? It's only the way that you do things that might be different. I think when there is honesty, when there is goodwill, these different ways of doing things are easily understood by the parties, and there should not be an obstacle. It's the other way around. It's an opportunity to really capitalize and do things even better. I think that, yes, I've been through different cultures. I remember my first experience working with someone else that was not from Barcelona, that was from India, okay? And I struggled because that person was extremely direct, okay? And if he hears this podcast, he's Nilesh Saman, okay? So Nilesh, I remember the coffee chats we had in our office in Barcelona, okay? If I compare Swiss culture with Middle East culture, okay? So I think that the importance of connecting as an individual is very different, okay? So in one business discussion, you will take the outcomes through a very nice structured meeting on where even the first joke of the meeting needs to be in the agenda, okay? While in the other culture, it's going to be very important that you build this personal connection, this trust that in this region of the world is very important and critical in order to make things happen. Okay? So I think when you understand this, and it's very important that all of us dedicate time to understand this way of doing things, then at the end, the real roots behind the individuals are exactly the same.
Now, we have obviously a lot of Indian listeners, and I work with two great Indian ladies. But and I think Indians would admit this. There's very little fluff sometimes in there. It's tell me. If you ring an Indian candidate, there's no how are you. It's just tell me. That's the word, and it's there. As you said, you need to get used to different cultures. Not one's right or wrong. It's but you need to mirror, I think, is probably the best way in understanding what makes people tick. So I guess with that, then focus on the culture side of things. As a CFO, of any organization, what's the culture that you want to bring to an organization?
Our finance role is very easy, no? So it's about compliance, it's about business partnering, and it's about generating value. Okay, so it connects a bit with what I said before. It's about ownership and try always to change the status quo to generate value for the organization and for the shareholders. Okay, what is this culture we want? So it's a culture of transparency. It's a culture of good transparency, means good communication, sharing in a very transparent way what are the objective, short, mid, and long terms that we want to achieve, okay? Is a culture of curiosity. I strongly believe curiosity and being curious is very important to develop people, to develop yourself, okay? It's about ambition. Try to do things better. Try to be a better teammate. Try to support the others, okay? Collaboration, okay? So be able to share your knowledge with other departments. Be able to be humble and accept knowledge to be shared with you. And then developing people, okay? Developing people, everyone plays a role here, from the most junior associate in the finance department to the most senior associate in the company. Personally, I like to deliver value. It's one of the things that I'm obsessed, okay? And I like also to ensure that through transformation, this value is generated always. Okay. Comparing to football, again, okay.
Yeah.
I don't like to play defense. Okay.
No.
It's making very boring. Okay. The people does not want to see these matches. Okay. I like to play attack. I think when you attack, you generate value. Okay. When you attack, the game is much more fun. Okay. And when you attack, there are always opportunities. Okay. So that's the way I like to also see the opportunities that a business can generate. Huh?
Okay, yeah, that's attack is the best form of defense, as they say. So yeah, just keep at it. And then touching, more for our listeners, obviously you come across very, confident, calm. But when you were a younger man, what were the areas which you need to develop? Because, it's all well and good saying having compliance, this, but when you personally were, a younger gentleman, what were the areas you had to work on? Like what did you feel were the key things you needed to get better at?
Yeah, a very important question for every leader.
Yeah.
Okay. So luckily in my career, I have been always surrounded by amazing leaders. Okay. That has provided me very good coaching, very good mentoring. Okay. And there was a special leader who touched me on this leadership journey. Okay. Which identified very quick which was my mistake. Okay. And tried to adapt the feedback to the personality I had. Okay. So as I told you, I'm a person that is normally quite focused on securing that through the maximum level of compliance, we can generate for the company and for the shareholders the maximum level of value. Okay. And that person took me one day in her office. It was the general manager of the company. And she told me, look, Ignacio, you are great, but you have a problem. Is that you only see numbers moving in the corridor of the office. You don't see people. Okay. So of course, as a general manager, I appreciate your support because every advice you give me give brutal amount of value, okay, for the company, but you need to reflect on your leadership style. This was an advice maybe 10 years ago, okay? So the comment was how by being closer to people from a human point of view, you are going to make them to generate more value. So this person understood very well that my objective of generation value cannot change. But the feedback she gave me was on how by touching people, you can continue keeping your same objective.
On the empathy side, is or
correct, just, on the empathy side. Okay. So what I discovered is that by understanding very well the motivation factors of every individual in your team or in the company and trying to support them on achieving that objectives, these people will feel more comfortable in their workplace. Okay, and will be more committed to the objective of the company.
And
okay.
Just on that then, how did you go about that? Was that a case that you needed to go for coffee breaks more with the team, have more one-to-one time, or put your arm around their shoulder more than, like, how do you go from flipping that mentality with for someone now who's maybe managing a team or leading a business and they've got similar feedback, or maybe they're aware that maybe this is something I'm not getting the results from the team?
We as a leaders have too much time to take too many coffees.
Yeah.
Okay, because of course it would be very nice to take a coffee with everyone and just talk about soccer, weather, beach, and, no. So of course you need to calibrate what is the correct approach. No. So the way I found is it's very important to understand very well as a leader what are the objectives that you want to achieve for the company. And what is the vision of the company, okay, for the long term and how this connects into the mid-term and short term, okay? And when this is well defined and aligned at executive team, there is a next step that is the proper communication to the teams and to the individuals, okay? When these objectives are properly defined and communicated, you can really look at the eyes of your team members and say, is this something that goes with you or not? When this click is done, okay, then it's your role as a leader to ensure that this person is properly supported, to ensure that he or she can perform at their best in their working place to feel committed to the company. Okay? So how you do that is by understanding very well what this person wants. You might have team members that wants a 9-to-5 work because they have family commitments, and we need to respect and support that. I think you recently put a post in LinkedIn that was very touching, very nice, on how you supported a team member.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Or there might be people that has very high important career aspirations and might tell you, look, Ignacio, I want more and I want to work Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
So how do you support also this person? Okay? So assigning the correct projects, assigning the correct responsibilities, assigning the correct targets is very important, but you need first to understand very well what is motivating every single individual.
What makes them tick. And then, as we close in the pod here, it's always nice to end on some good stories. So, for you, having worked in, what's been the best experience you've had so far in your career? Because you've seen many things, big companies, smaller company, local companies, everything. So what's been?
Yes. There are two experiences that will always be in my heart. Okay. One is back in Novartis, okay, where we had a project that was related to cell and gene, okay, and it was the first time that a pharmaceutical company committed to cure cancer for kids in leukemia, okay. So now the topic of cell and gene and CAR-19 is very common, maybe not even the ultimate technology anymore, but at that time, maybe 10 years ago, was something extremely pioneering. Okay, from a finance point of view, I led that initiative. It triggered some M&A projects, some important investment in R&D. Okay, but when we saw our first patient cured by Novartis, this was a very touching moment of why we are here. Okay, and especially in finance, where sometimes it's not easy to connect to the objective. This was a very special moment for me.
That's nice. Yeah.
Okay. The second one I would say is basically the experience here in Middle East. Okay. So leading the finance organization of a corporation like Juiphar Pharmaceuticals in a completely different cultural environment. Okay. Having the experience of dealing with such fantastic people, going through, as we know, moments of transformation for the company, and putting the company in one of the best moments from a financial performance point of view, and be ready for what the future can bring to this organization, has been also, professionally speaking, one of the best experience I had in my career. So I think these, for the time being, are the two most important highlights.
That's good. And then what's the one piece of advice you give to our listeners, aspiring CFOs?
I don't want to give any advice to anyone, Connor. Okay, first of all, I think there's people that is much more better than me to give advices. I can share my experience.
Share your experience.
Okay? So the first thing is ensure you are surrounded by leaders that fit your values and behaviors. Okay, this is very important. Okay, because at the end, these are the ones that will guide you in the way that you believe is the correct one. Okay, in a role like finance, be adherence to your values is very important, especially because, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are the guardians of compliance. Okay. Second, work hard to become this business partner. Okay, because at the end, we will need to give value to the organization and to the shareholders. Okay, so I always say, I think we comment on that, when you receive a call from your business leader, can be a business unit head, can be a general manager, a CEO, or a board member, at night, because that person needs to take a decision and does not really know what is the best one, and he or she calls you, this is where you are becoming the person of trust and you're becoming the right hand. Okay? Be a team player. Okay? So share with your team, share with your business partners. Okay? And enjoy.
Exactly. Well,
Okay, enjoy, because the role of finance can give you a lot of adrenaline, okay? And it's enjoyable always, no matter what is the challenge you have in front of you.
And speaking of adrenaline, so what's the one thing on your bucket list that you still have to do?
Be part of an end-to-end IPO process, okay? So this is one of the things that hopefully one day I can do, okay, for a big group, for a big company. There's many of them happening in this region of the world.
A lot, yeah. It's the buzzword.
Correct. Second, I think slowly thinking on having my own venture capital fund, my own investment source to support healthcare projects. Okay, I want to make an impact in the society. Okay, and I want to bring innovation to society and related to healthcare and life science. Okay, so this is a part of the bucket list also. Yes, I mean, continue having fun.
Exactly.
Huh?
It's all about fun.
Yes.
And then, if you could have a conversation with your younger self, what would you say?
Don't be afraid of fail.
Exactly.
Okay, don't be afraid of trying new things. Okay.
Yeah.
And not be so cautious.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't know what is going to happen, so we are very cautious. We go with the second gear instead of the third or the fourth. Okay.
Yeah.
If you put the fourth one, nothing will happen.
You miss 100% of shots you never take,
yeah.
as they say. And then, just to close, then, what is your definition of success?
Respect for the others, I think. So there are many things you can answer, but at the end, all will end in you having respected the others and bring value to the others. Huh?
Ignacio, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Connor, has been really a pleasure. Okay. And then the next one is in the golf course.
Yeah, the next one's got then maybe a bit of paddle, but no, mucho gracias.
Thank you to
you. Look forward to getting you on again, and thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners. And I guess from our side, we hope everyone's enjoyed this episode. Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast, and adios Labego, and see you on the next episode.
Thank you to you, Connor. Thank you to you also, to your team, to Lewis, to Graham. Okay,
yeah.
You are doing a fantastic job here in the region.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.